let's update her bio, shall we? Because there's a big ad to it right now. This is how she entered the week. She had just come off becoming the first ever woman to win back-to-back individual NCAA titles. She won 12 of her 20 starts in college at Stanford. Set a school record, by the way, male or female. That's the same place that Tiger Woods and other standouts went to. Whilst there, she set an NCAA single-season scoring record of 68.7. That was this past season. She won the U.S. Women's Am before she won the U.S. Girls Junior, first ever to do it in that order. She won the Augusta National Women's Amateur this year in her last attempt at that, having had a couple of close calls in years prior, and she would have known she was planning to turn professional this month. And then she delivers and wins in her first professional start on the LPGA Tour. I don't know where you go from here, Brandel. Perhaps the only way is up, but she'd said, I've won pretty much everything there is to win in the amateur game, so it's time for me to turn professional. I think she made the right decision.
I guess we should have seen this coming. You know, they all have amazing talent out there. You look at the golf swings, they're beautiful. They all hit great shots, but these rare stars, they come along and they have a way of keeping their nerve, right, and focusing when situations get tough. Even day one, if you go back to when she was just getting started in this tournament on the 13th hole, she drove it in the bunker on the 13th, on the par 5, had to chip out, missed the green with the third. It looked like she might give one back at a good opportunity to score, and she hits this beautiful pitch. I mean, who do these shots remind you of? Lorena Ochoa, Annika Sorenstam, Tiger Woods. It's these superstars keep their focus, and they have a way of finishing in style. This is it. Her first round as a professional, the last hole of the day, birdies at the 18th to shoot 70. And we will fast forward to the third round. And of course, you've already alluded to this shot, and this is one that we will remember amongst many from this week. We will remember from Rose Zhang. This hole is playing downwind off the right, so if you hit a good drive, you got it tumbling down there, you could reach the green. And this one would have almost, would have missed by, what, a couple of feet from going in the hole. Now, she didn't make that. It would slip back down that hill closer and closer and closer. Inexplicably, she would miss that for the eagle, but a nice tap-in birdie. And then there were a couple of moments today that really stood out. We already talked about this when she hooked it off the tee at the 12th. This woman doesn't stray from the fairway very often. It's not like she's got to create shots like a Jordan Spieth or a Seve Ballesteros, but that had all of the theatricality to it. Off a downhill, side hill lie, out of the rough, over the trees, to a right pin. Yeah. What do you do for an encore performance? And then at the 17th hole from 8 feet, must make to keep that one-shot lead playing the 18th hole, and that was so important because, of course, that 18th hole was playing brutal. She made bogey, that sent her into a playoff, and then with this swing right here, Jennifer Kupcho with the longer player farther down there, and how do you make that green smaller? How do you make it harder to hit? You put pressure on your player. This is, look, you don't like to be outdriven. It's not an advantage to be outdriven unless you can put pressure on your opponent. In this particular case, she did. She forced Jennifer Kupcho's hand. She hit the poor iron shot into the green, which led to the 3-putt, which opened the door for her to win. And the great thing about players that come along like this, of course, they get us looking in the present, they get us looking forward, but you've already alluded to this. It's been 72 years since this happened. It was a great week for Rose Zhang, but it was also a great week for Beverly Hansen because we talked about her a lot, and she's going into the Hall of Fame this year. They have us looking back. There it is. You alluded to it, Cara. 1951. She won the Eastern Open. Of course, she had already won as an amateur. She won the Texas Open on the LPGA Tour in its inaugural year in 1950. And when you start talking about the Texas Open, there is another player that won in their very first tournament as a professional, and it happened 50 years ago, and that was the great Ben Crenshaw. As I said, it gets you looking back. The same way Tiger Woods got all of us looking back at Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus, of course, was an amazing legacy, but he's kept Nicklaus's name present. And when you start to look bigger picture at Rose Zhang, and we did talk about this morning. How often do you see a player play with that kind of joy, with that kind of smile? Lights it up, right? And it did remind me of Nancy Lopez. And again, let's go back to 1978. And Nancy Lopez, in her first full year on the LPGA Tour, she was remarkable. She won 9 times. In this stretch, though, right here where she won the LPGA Championship, which won it by 6, she won 5 in a row. And when the year was over, she didn't just win Rookie of the Year. She didn't just win Player of the Year. She won the Vera Trophy as well, and to date, she is the only LPGA player to have done all of those in 1 year. And of course, when you're doing all that kind of stuff and you got a smile like that and a reaction like that, they put you on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rose Zhang on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Incidentally, she was the AP Female Athlete of the Year. It is just great to see a player come along like Nancy Lopez. They don't come along very often. And here we have another one, it looks like to me, in Rose Zhang. It
felt inevitable, didn't it, in a funny way? But could it be? Could it really be?
It's so funny you say that because after this, I think it was after the second round, I said, can we get a list of players and how long it took them to win their first LPGA tournament? Our producer, Jeff Fabian, who's in my ear right now, he was like, are you getting a little ahead of yourself? And I was like, well, maybe I am. I just wanted to know. He came in yesterday after she shot 66, and she's like, well, maybe you're not getting ahead of yourself. And sure enough, she cashed it in and surprised us all to some extent. And I'm sure there are a number of people out there that are not particularly surprised.
Golf has been waiting for Rose Zhang. She's here. She is a professional. And she is a winner on the LPGA Tour. Now a full-time member on the LPGA Tour. She's eligible for the United States Solheim Cup team this September in Andalusia. We heard from assistant captain Morgan Pressel that her and captain Stacey Lewis have been texting back and forth a little bit today. You wouldn't be surprised, Brad, to see her in that lineup, would you?
No, I would not be. Not at all. I'm sure they would welcome her on that team.
Oh, what a day for Rose Zhang. What a day for women's golf. What a day for amateur golf. Just a wonderful moment in our game. We don't see history made like this very often. As we said, the first time in 72 years, someone has won, or a woman, I should say, has won in her professional debut. And it took a couple extra holes, but she hung tough despite a final round 74. Rose Zhang is your Mizuho America's Open champion.